Hello, everyone, and welcome to Superior Gold's Live Investment Summit today, hosted by SIX. We are joined today by Tamara Brown, Superior Gold's interim CEO. Tamara will walk us through a company presentation, and then we will be accepting questions live. So as a reminder, you can submit your questions at any time on the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of the screen, and we'll get to them after the presentation. And as always, the summit is being recorded and will be available to watch afterwards on six.com. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Tamara.
Thank you, Dasha, and thanks everyone for joining us today to get an update on Superior Gold's exploration activities. We've definitely been very busy. So Superior Gold owns a world-class gold mine in a Tier 1 mining jurisdiction. Please do note my forward-looking statements and that all amounts are in US dollars unless otherwise indicated. Investment highlights for Superior Gold. We are operating in one of the world's top mining jurisdictions of Western Australia. As I said, we own a world-class gold mine that's in operation with significant established infrastructure. We have a clear optimisation and expansion plan with a significant mineral resource base with exploration upside, which we're going to talk about today. And finally, we have very compelling re-rate opportunity compared to our peers. Taking a closer look at Plutonic, we own 100% of the Plutonic gold operations right in the heart of Western Australia. We own 100% of the Plutonic underground gold mine outlined in red, and then 100% of the Hermes open pit project located about 60 kilometres southwest in purple, and then an 80% joint venture in the Hermes South open pit project outlined in green. So this is an established gold camp. It used to be run by the likes of Barrick and then Northern Star and then Superior Gold in 2017 when we acquired it. So it's a big gold system. It's produced around 6 million ounces of gold and has been continuous production since 1990. As I mentioned, well-defined optimization and growth plan. So we've broken our strategy into 4 pillars. The first one being the Plutonic underground. The underground operation has been in operation for many years, but we're in a process of optimizing the production by increasing the amount of tons and grade that we're getting from the underground. It currently operates in and around 70,000 ounces of gold a year, and we do see an opportunity to improve that. The second pillar are the open pits. Plutonic was designed as an open pit mine back in 1990, and we have not mined from open pits for a number of years, and so we're happy to be bringing back into production a number of small open pits close to our mill this year. So we started mining the A4 or Plutonic East open pit in mid-year this year. And we do see the introduction of these open pits increasing our production profile. As I said, we have a number of small open pits, and then we have a larger open pit project, which is the main pit pushback. The main pit at Plutonic was the original pit mined here, and after production, we went into mining the underground ore, but there are around 500,000 ounces sitting below that main pit. And we came out with a PEA project last year in order to bring those ounces out into an open pit plan that increases production by 60,000 ounces a year for 6 years. So a great open pit project for the company, and we're excited to advance that. The third pillar of our strategy is that we have a second mill operating at Plutonic. So we have currently operating a 1.8 million tonne per annum mill, and we have on the property a 1.2 million tonne per annum mill. So this second mill represents an opportunity to further increase production here at Plutonic. We have a number of different projects that we're looking at to bring that mill back into production. So whether it be ore on our own property, reprocessing of tailings facilities, tailings material, or a consolidation of the Plutonic Merrimire Gold Belt. And then the final pillar is the new discovery. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and I would say is probably the most exciting part of our strategy. So for the geologists in the room, I am not a geologist, my apologies. So if there are questions today of geological nature in depth, I will certainly be forwarding them on to our geologists at Plutonic. But we sit here at the top of the world-class YILGARN gold camp. People will be very familiar with the Kalgoorlie-Coolgardie gold camp region. So we are right at the north of that same WA gold fields that have produced in excess of 120 million ounces of gold historically. So as you can appreciate, these are the right rocks to carry big gold systems. And Plutonic sits here as one of the big 5 gold discoveries of the 90s still in production, and we believe has a long life ahead of it. Taking a little bit closer look, it's a large gold mineralized system. It's always great to show a flashy picture of gold for those out there that are not as technical as me. So you can see that the gold at Plutonic, there are certainly very high grade areas, periods of visible gold throughout the operation. We've got a strong history of increasing our reserves and resources here at Plutonic. So you can see year over year we have invested in drilling and development, and that really comes in and is shown in our reserve and resource profile. We do believe that there's an opportunity here to continue to optimise our block model, and that's some of the work we'll be talking about today. So trying to understand the gold system at Plutonic is, you know, for a layman like myself, was somewhat interesting. So for those not as familiar with this gold deposit, there are northwest trending bands of high-grade mineralization. This is an image showing you the Plutonic main pit footprint, and then some of our other regional past mining and targets. So you can see to the west, Plutonic West, and then to the east, Big Fish. So these are gram meter contours from surface taken from our exploration drilling. And the slide really is here just to show you that we see that there is a macro trend of northwest mineralization, as well as at a mine scale, which we'll show you a little bit later, there is also a northwest trend of gold mineralization. And we've been doing a lot of work on the fundamentals of our geological model here at Plutonic over the last year and a bit. And we're going to be improving that as we go forward here. So taking a look at the surface operations, I apologise, this is a small image, but we have an image here of the Plutonic main pit and the proposed pushback in blue to the east, the pink in the west, and the green down to the south. This mineralisation comes from what is called the mineralised mine mafic at Plutonic. This geological unit exists all the way across the Plutonic property. It outcrops at the main pit, and it also outcrops here at Plutonic East, but it does exist all the way across the property. So we're very excited about what the surface exploration potential is here at Plutonic. There are a couple of holes into this mineralised mine mafic historically by Barrick. I don't know whether you can see these, but 16 grams over 2 metres and 5 grams over a metre. These are right below surface, and so we are bringing on to Plutonic a surface drill rig for the first time in many years, certainly the first time since we've owned the mine. And we will be both infill drilling that main pit project that I talked about, and also for the first time doing a lot of surface exploration across here to see if there are in fact other open pit opportunities here at Plutonic. Very excited about what that could mean for the company. Obviously chasing this TSF target here, which is the 16 grams over 2 metres. So as I said, a lot of work is going into the fundamentals of the geology at Plutonic, and with technical advances in both computing power and algorithms, we now are able to incorporate all of our historical data sets. So that's 30 years of mining, 30 years of face sampling and drilling, and incorporate that into our geological model. So we are now including the structural, lithological, alteration information into the Plutonic 3D block model. And it is much better predicting the volume and grade of gold and where it exists in space. So this slide shows you an image of how we did our block model currently, which is using constrained wireframes around the mineralization. And that's a process where a geologist will come and use an AutoCAD computer system and manually encapsulate certain intercepts with a wireframe. You can see that's the red northwest trending stripes here. But when we actually went and mined the ore body, this is our development out here in blue, and then the stope, you can see that model, that block model, didn't really predict very accurately where the gold was. Whereas in contrast, our new 3D model that we have utilized now with all of that more information, much better predicts where the gold is. And in fact, there's a potential here that there was some ore missed when we mined, so we left some ore behind. At Plutonic, over 30 years, we've got a history of mining outside of reserves and resources by about 50%. So by definition, the block model is not accurate. It does not fully identify where all of the gold is. And that's the opportunity we see here. So this is a big process. We will be incorporating this 3D modeling across the entire reserve and resource block model, which will be about a 12-month process. And we do hope that in Q1 next year, we'll be coming out with a reserve and resource update that incorporates this more accurate estimation information. So I've talked about some of the surface potential here at Plutonic. Now I'm going to take a little bit of a look at the underground. There's significant exploration upside across the underground ore body. So you can see here, this is a cross-section of Plutonic where we have the Indian, Baltic, and Baltic extension regions. And then over here on the west, we have the Timor and Area 134 Cortez and Caribbean regions of the mine. So we are currently mining a lot from Timor and a lot from the Baltic. And taking a look at these intercepts, you can see pretty well everywhere at Plutonic, there's significant high grade. And so you need to be very systematic and disciplined in your approach to exploration, because at these gold prices, pretty well everything lights up. Taking a look at a plan view of the operation and some of the historic step-out drilling, you can see why when we added a third drill rig to the property at the end of December 2020, it was very clear that there were quite a number of high-grade exploration drill holes that had been intercepted to the west of this ore body, so here on the western extension. So we put our drill rig there, and we're very happy with the results that have been coming in. So this is a cross-section showing you that western extension, the western mining front extending all the way from the Caspian up in the main pit down through the Indian, Baltic and Baltic extension. And then the second new mining front that we're looking at opening is the Baltic Gap. So our strategy was to go and take a look at some of that historical drilling, identify where we could push out from our existing infrastructure, put the drill rig there, and then really just send the results to you guys, the shareholders. This was the first this year, the first drilling campaign that we did down here in the Baltic West. We came out with 13.7 grams over 8.8 meters, certainly a lot higher grade than we're currently mining, but it's in close proximity to our existing infrastructure. And that's very important because we will be able to, and we have done, put drill rigs here, put a drill rig, and infill this mineralization so that we can quickly bring it from the inferred category into the M&I and into our mine plan. So this was a program where 100% of the completed holes hit significant mineralization. So this was an example of where our that improvement in our block model is helping us with our exploration targeting. The second campaign was in the Indian zone. So it was about 350 meters up dip, still on the western extension of this ore body. And the geologists explained to me that, you know, they're going to be simply continuing to expand this western mining front all the way along this entire 1.2 kilometer western front. So in this Indian zone, we hit some very high grade mineralization, 56 grams over 15 meters. This kind of mineralization gives me the comfort that this ore body is not pinching out. It is not getting lower grade. It simply has not been drilled methodically along this western mining front. So I'm very excited about what this means. So we now believe that there is potentially continuous mineralization from that Baltic West extension that I showed you just previously, and that's 350 meters. And again, close to infrastructure, so we can put a drill rig here and infill drill this with very low capital. The next area that we've been exploring in has been the Baltic Gap, which is the northwest extension here from the Baltic mineralization that actually has the opportunity to join together the Baltic and the Baltic extension. So the current infrastructure at Plutonic extends down here to the bottom of the Baltic zone. We have not yet developed into the Baltic extension ore body. And so that is one of our new mining fronts for the company. And the opportunity that we see here is obviously to reduce the period of time where we would have negative or neutral cash flow. So every drill hole that we hit gold, we can fill in the mineralization such that we have continuous positive cash flow as we develop into a new mining front. As you can see from here, some significant intercepts, 40 grams over 6.5 meters, 21.8 grams over 8.3 meters. Just in the last week, we put out further extension holes and infill holes, 14.8 grams over 13.4 meters. This is obviously clearly a new mining front for the company. It extends across the entire extent of that Baltic gap, or that Baltic mineralization down here to the northwest extension or down dip in the ore body. And we're very excited about getting into these new areas because obviously they are higher grade than the average grade that we are currently mining at Plutonic, but they also offer the opportunity to put in place best mining practices with respect to our mine planning and our stopes, so that we're not going in and taking a small stope in one area, moving our equipment to another area, that we have a number of sequentially ordered stopes that we can take and improve those productivities as well as the mined grade. So this slide really is just giving you an idea that, okay, great, you've got the Western mining front that we've talked about, we've got the Baltic Gap, but there are also historic intercepts all across the Plutonic property that we have the opportunity to follow up on and incorporate into the next exploration plan. It's very clear that we have a lot of work to do here on the Western mining front by simply systematically step out drilling all the way along that ore body and then in the Baltic Gap. But we also have the opportunity to follow up on other historical intercepts. And so this is one area that I'd like to talk about. We don't have any exploration drill rigs dedicated here, but I'm very excited about what it could mean for the company. We have the opportunity to search for the mine Mayfic extension between the Timor region and the Baltic region. So this is a gap in our ore body right now. On the plan view, I'll actually go back and show you. This is where I guess it looks like a horseshoe. And so in the middle of the horseshoe there, between the Timor, the top of the Timor, and the Baltic region, there has been very little drilling, and it's because it's hard to access from surface. This is a 3D model of that ore body, the Baltic dipping down and the Timor up here. This green image, or this green blob, is really a geologist's theory of what a Timor-sized ore body, it could fit easily within that gap, very easily not have been identified so far. So we now are very busy putting together an exploration plan on what it could look like to go and follow up on some of this historic drilling in this gap. As a reminder for those out there that don't know, the Timor ore body was a very large ore body. Barrick were mining that. They mined about 1 million ounces at an average of 8 grams. So, you know, more than double what we are currently mining at here at Plutonic. So a lot more profitability. And so we're chasing the extension of that Timor deposit. We will be in the future. So some of that historic drilling there was 20.4 grams over 2 meters. And that does sit in between the Baltic and the Timor regions. And so our geologists now are working on theories about where that mine Mayfic extends. So these are interpretations that have, I guess, a gap in information that we now look to be working on moving forward. So which really brings me to the end. This presentation is really meant as an appetizer to some of the work we've been doing here at Plutonic. We do believe that we're going to have a steady flow of exploration results now that we have a drill rig dedicated to exploration and that won't be sucked into production drilling. And you can see that last quarter we put out 2 exploration updates. We recently put out another one, and we hope to again in the near term. Other things that you'll see, we were very successful in paying off that gold loan, which was a financial instrument that was an onerous piece of debt that is now fully paid off. And so we have around $2.5 million a quarter, or $10 million a year, that will be coming to our bottom line that will help supplement our exploration program here at Plutonic. Other news flow that we would expect are updates from the advancement of our projects like the Hermes South and Main Pit projects. And then also, obviously, in the second half of the year, we're going to have that surface drill rig testing for testing the mineralized mine Mayfic across the Plutonic property. So then we're going to have a flow of exploration information from the underground and exploration information from surface, which I think will be a very positive catalyst for the company moving forward. So with that, Dasha, that's the end of our very brief exploration update here at Plutonic.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now we're going to jump right into the Q&A. So if you do have a question, please submit it now. But to kick things off, Tamara, why do you think you've had such success recently at Plutonic? What has changed?
Great question, Dasha. So, you know, this mine has been owned by some of the heavyweights. Obviously, Barrick are a big gold mining company. I think the advantages that we have now are a number of things. We've had new thinking and we've had technological advances happen. So that 3D modeling, that came about because there is more computer power, technological advances with respect to geological modeling. And so we have the benefit of that. But I think that as with everything in mining, things come back to the people. And we have our chief geologist who used to work at Plutonic many years ago, and we are very fortunate that he came back to Plutonic about a year and a half ago. And I think that has been the trigger. He understands the geology here. He's bringing back geology to everything we do at the mine. And that is helping with how we mine plan. It is absolutely helping with our exploration targeting. So really, as with anything, the true value of many things come down to the quality of your people. And I put a lot of credit to that, to our chief geologist.
Great, thank you. How quickly would you be able to put the 2 new mining fronts into production?
The Western Mining Front and the Baltic Gap. So great question. This mineralization is very close to our infrastructure. So it's actually adjacent. So there really is no gap. So there will be very minimal capital that is for expansion, because it'll be operating capital as we develop into these areas. So I think that there's an opportunity to bring them into production as soon as we want to, is the answer. So we are right now, in 2021, we're very focused on drilling, so that we can, at the end of the year, we do our budget and our life of mine processing in around October, November each year. And so as long as we have as much drilling as possible completed by then, we will incorporate it into our 2022 plan. So we have no plan at this stage to go and pick the cherries out of that 56 grams over 15 meters in 2021, because we have a very good mine plan to execute on with free cash flow this year. We want to make sure that we operate to plan, that we improve that block model with this 3D modeling project, and that we absolutely have the opportunity then to incorporate these new high-grade areas in the mine plan for 2022 and 2023 to ensure that we have that growth progression in our production profile.
All right, got it. So once these new mining fronts are in production, do you expect your per unit cash cost to go back to the 2017 levels?
Yeah, look, that's a very interesting question. I think that there's absolutely that opportunity, and that's what we're aiming for. So the reason here at Plutonic that our cash costs got a little higher last year was that we have a lot of fixed costs. This is a fly-in, fly-out operation that has, a lot of costs associated, irrespective of the amount of ounces that you produce. So when you get down sub 70,000 ounces to the 63,000 ounces we produced last year, there's a lot more cost to average over a smaller denominator. So obviously that's why, we've got a lot of focus. We've our guidance this year is an increased production level. And what these new areas offer us is not just more ounces, because that will help absolutely on that cost base, because there's no more costs associated with this extra production. All of the same people, all of this same equipment is there. We are just getting higher grades and better productivities from these new areas. So we absolutely think that there's a significant cost reduction opportunity here, and that's what we look forward to showing in 2022.
Great. All right. Stephen's asking, would you have to move the processing plant or any major infrastructure for your expansion plan on surface? If so, do you know how this would impact production rates?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Our main pit project is currently brings out about 350,000 ounces of the total 500,000 that are sitting there. And the reason is, like's been identified, that the mill is a surface constraint. So that open pit could get bigger if that mill wasn't sitting there. So we are doing some capital trade-off studies this year that take a look at moving some of the peripheral areas of that mill in order to potentially expand the size of that main pit project. But if we step back and say, okay, across the whole property, if we did end up being successful with that surface exploration, remembering that sort of 16 grams over 2 meters there at the TSF target, that's a significant opportunity. And I guess it's a problem I'd want to have. They're champagne problems. If we identify a super pit here across the Plutonic property, I would expect infrastructure would have to be moved. For those that have followed the story closer, that TSF target obviously sits on top of a tailings storage facility. And so one of those projects that we talked about with respect to opening our second mill was reprocessing that tailings material. So if we find there's a big old gold deposit underneath the tailings facility, will be paying for itself by reprocessing that material as we move it. So we would move it, put it through the second mill with a flotation circuit, obviously generate free cash, and that would pay for the movement of that infrastructure. So I guess there's many ways to look at this. I think the fundamental is that there's a lot of gold at Plutonic.
Great. I'm gonna ask a question that also relates to that. Kala's asking, how are you going to approach the 30 years of tailings that could be mill feed? Will that need drilling? And also, when can we expect Indian Zone drill results?
Two good and different questions. So it's hard to say. So the engineers don't give me exact timelines on their scoping studies and PEAs. You know, I'm always pushing. I'm very interested in hearing where they're advancing. But that's a project that we have on the table this year. So I would expect us to, at the end of this year, understand exactly what capital would be required to advance that tailings facility project next year. And we have a new CEO coming in who has a lot of experience with these kinds of things. So I'm excited to see what he brings to the table with respect to that project. And then the second question was the Indian Zone. So yes, look, I'm happy to say, although we don't talk about exactly when exploration results are at, because the reason being that you don't know how long the assays take to come back. When you send off your assays, we have a Plutonic lab which has been excellent, and that has allowed us to, I think, really get out a steady flow of exploration results, where some of our peers in the region have been relying on third-party labs that have taken a long time. But I would say that over the next month, you will see another exploration update from us, ideally with some of those Indian results in it.
Great, thank you. Tim is asking, what is the timeline for the main pit project?
So this year we're doing the infill drilling, and the timeline for the main pit is actually defined by our heritage survey. So at Plutonic, we've been very, very fortunate that we've been operating uninterrupted from COVID effectively. Western Australia has really, for the most part, been free of COVID, which has been wonderful. But we've had a zero tolerance policy with respect to our local Indigenous communities, because they're very remote and very susceptible to anything like a virus like this. And so that main pit project timeline is really dependent on that heritage survey. So I can say it's currently planned for the second half of this year, which is very promising. But we don't give an exact this quarter or that quarter. We don't give anything more accurate than that.
Got it. Thank you. Brazil's asking, what is the anticipated life of a mine for the existing reserves?
Yeah, look, it's a good question. Plutonic, any underground mine often has a 3 to 5 year mine life for 20 years in a row. And that's because the market doesn't pay you to prove up your reserves and resources. Plutonic currently has around 330,000 ounces in reserves. So if you were, you would say around 4 years. So again, in that 3 to 5 year period. But I don't think that anyone looking at these drill results, which currently are not incorporated into that reserve and resource statement, would think that Plutonic ends in 3 to 4 years. I think there's a lot of understanding in the investment community that so long as you drill and develop, this mineralization, is proving to us that it extends both up dip, down dip, and along strike. And so, I guess the official answer is 4 years in reserves, but we do believe it goes a lot longer than that.
Right. Dan is wondering if you were looking into a main ASX listing.
A lot of people ask this. It's very logical. This is an Australian asset. The Australians know it. I'm Australian. You can tell from the accent. I think there's an opportunity there to to leverage that arbitrage that exists between the TSX and the ASX entities. You know, over time, there's sometimes a premium on the TSX and sometimes a premium on the ASX, and you're never going to capture it perfectly. I think the TSX listing has been very beneficial to us because we have access to the largest capital pool in the world right next door to us. And so and we have a lot of investors very educated about Australia and knowledgeable. So our shareholder base, you know, predominantly North American and European, but we do see the opportunity, first of all, to bring in Australian investors, and then secondarily, depending on the support thereof, to look at a small secondary placement in Australia, if that made sense at the right time. So you can appreciate this is not something we're looking at this year or next year, but down the road when we look at developing that main pit project, maybe that might be a time to look at an ASX dual listing.
All right, thank you. How many tons of tailings are on the property? Tim is asking.
So Tim, it's a hard question to answer. There's 30 years of tailings there. So I'm not going to answer it because it's I guess subject to our current scoping plan. So I wouldn't want to say the wrong number and the engineers to cringe and say you got that wrong tomorrow. We're currently doing the work, and the reason I say that is that there are different regions of deposition because the ore body at Plutonic was mined and deposited in different areas. There's different mineralogy and different grades. There's about a 0.7 gram opportunity there, but I don't talk about the amount of tons because that will depend on what's appropriate to put through the flotation circuit and what isn't.
All right. His next question is, will any of the high-grade stopes be mined in 2021?
Look, we don't need to, Tim. We don't need to mine them. We have a very strong mine plan for 2021. The only thing I can say is that if it made strategic or logical sense as we were developing, because we do plan to commence developing into these areas in Q4 to take a stope because it otherwise may have been sterilised. I think there's a potential for that, but we do not look at incorporating those two new areas into our mine plan because we have sufficient strong, good grades with free cash flow in Q3 and Q4. So we already have production growth this year and in the second half.
All right, thank you. And in closing, beyond these two mining fronts, what other exploration targets would you like to focus on?
So I finished the presentation with it, Dasha, and I'm glad you asked this at the end. We're all very excited about finding that next TIMOR in the underground. That's been there for many years. People have, it's been an elusive target because we all know that when the fluid deposited that kind of high-grade mineralization in the TIMOR, it didn't just stop. So we're very excited about that. But for me, I'm very excited about that surface opportunity where that mineralized mine mafic exists just below surface across the Plutonic property, and no one has drilled it for many years. And at these gold prices, you know, I'm quite happy to put 16 grams into an open pit that's 20 meters below surface. So they're the two things, in the underground, the TIMOR, and in the surface, that extension of the open pit opportunities there.
All right, thank you. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for taking us through your presentation and the Q&A. I also want to thank everyone who joined us today and asked these great questions. If you think of another question or we didn't get a chance to answer your question during this summit, we will be sending out a short survey, and you can leave your contact information and the Superior Gold will be happy to follow up with you directly. And you can also find more information at their website, superiorgold.com. But I'll pass it back to you tomorrow for the final word.
Thanks, Tasha, and thanks everyone for taking the time. Plutonic is, I would call it a bit of a turnaround story right now, but we are very proud to be having success in the operations and some really exciting success on the exploration front. And if anyone knows much about gold mining, the best place to find gold is in the shadow of a head frame, so to speak. So we believe the Plutonic gold system extends. We do believe there is a discovery just on the other side of this drilling. And so please do stay tuned and get updates from us when you think about it.